Whew. Okay, we've got a lot to get through. A lot of Trails news has happened in the past month or so. We've got a new game for Switch, a new game for PS4, and a myriad of announcements. So without further ado guys, let's get going. So first of all, let's address the news that a Trails game is finally coming to the Switch. I must admit, I was surprised, especially considering that Falcom recently said that they were struggling with the Switch's hardware back in July, but maybe that just doesn't apply to NISA. Up until this point, Xseed has been released on Switch, and many were fearing that this would be the only Falcom title to see the light of day on Nintendo's latest platform. Until now. On December the 3rd, it was announced by GameSpot that Trails of Cold Steel 3 is set for a spring 2020 release, and it will follow the same formula as the PS4 version, having an extracurricular edition and of course the full Force Military edition, which, dare I say it, has a better looking steel case than the PS4 version. NISA also got a community vote going for a reversible cover on the physical case, which has since ended with exactly the same image as we got on the PS4 version. The most surprising news is that Europe and North America will get this release first. Japan is still in the dark about a release for themselves. Now, as far as Cold Steel 3 being the first game on a new platform, you guys know what I feel about it. I've done a full video on it like about 3 months ago. I'm not going to talk about that, okay? It's been talked about extensively on Twitter and subreddits alike. What I will be focusing on though are the positives of this. You know, what is that going to mean for us as Trails fans going forward? And also, what is it going to mean for the Trails series? Firstly, with Cold Steel 3 coming to Switch, it means that more people are going to get involved with Trails. We've seen from the financial reports a month back that Falcom's sales have grown significantly in the West, and releasing it on a new platform is not only going to spur those numbers further, but also bring more fans into the series. I love the Falcom fandom. It's the most passionate and balanced niche of fans I've ever encountered, with people developing not-for-profit fan translations and translation spreadsheets just due to a sheer love of the games. If more people as passionate as this get involved with Trails, it can only be a good thing. Secondly, we can finally play Cold Steel 3 on the move. How cool is that? Being able to play Cold Steel 3 in a long commute or play it in bed, you know, that's an awesome thought to me. Unfortunately, we all know now that the Vita is pretty much gone, and Sony have conceded they won't be developing a new handheld console indefinitely, meaning that the monopoly for handheld gaming now lies with Nintendo. I'm just hoping that more titles are brought to the Switch. However, this will depend entirely on Xseed, as they still hold the localization rights to many other Falcom titles, and more on them a bit later. Finally, and I believe most importantly, it shows that NISA are fully committed to the likes of Trails and Ys. As I've said before, NISA had a rocky start with Falcom games, resulting in that debacle with Xseed in terms of translation, and then later issues with the PC port, which appear to have been sorted out since. Cold Steel 3 on the other hand so far has experienced no such issue. I've given extensive praise to NISA for what they have done in regards to the latest Trails Western release, and though I haven't finished the game yet, I can say that the localization is of a high standard. There are the odd hiccups here and there, like misgendering a character from the Crossbow arc and a few missed spaces, but honestly that's it, and that's with me talking to every character in every chapter several times and reading most of the books. Of course, NISA are still a company and they want to make as much profit as possible on the games they have rights to, but what they have done over the past 6 months especially has been very positive for the Trail series, and the fans can see that. Speaking of NISA, they made an announcement on the 17th via Twitter that they'll be having a panel at PAX South 2020, the day in question being January 17th. Among other things, they'll be bringing along a special guest, selling some goodies and also making some announcements. Now, the word announcements doesn't really give us many clues as to what to expect. However, there was an interesting parallel between this moment and the subsequent newsletter that was sent along with it. Titled Publishing from Console to PC, apparently the panel will have a section dedicated to the processes and challenges by which a PC port is made, with direct reference to Cold Steel 3. Evidently, this is not any form of confirmation, however there is also another bit of intriguing speculation going around in relation to this. Peter Durant Toman, who was well known for his Dark Souls fix when it was brought to PC, because let's be honest, that port was awful, will also likely be known quite well by some Trails fans, as he is the one who worked on the PC versions of both Trails of Cold Steel 1 and 2, which I can testify are veritably solid ports. Earlier this year, Durant had just opened his own studio dedicated to PC ports, PH3 Games. Let me reiterate, this is speculation, but Durant recently has come out and said officially that the studio is currently working on an unannounced JRPG PC port. Considering the announcement made by NISA just now, and knowing Durant's history with the Cold Steel series, is it possible that this mystery JRPG could be the sought after CS3 port? Interesting for sure, but for now, we're going to have to wait till the new year. Now what about the OGs? What about Xseed? You know, they kind of disappeared off the map, despite giving us a plethora of fantastic ports like, you know, Cold Steel 1 and 2 and the Trails in the Sky trilogy. You know, they kind of disappeared after all of the hoo-ha surrounding NISA and Trails of Cold Steel 3. Well, I'm happy to say that they are actually back, and they are working on a PS4 port of Ys Memories of Celceta, which is due out in spring 2020. So what can we expect from Memories of Celceta? Adol, what are you doing here, man? Oh, okay then. Alright, we'll show it to them. This one came completely out of the pie and mash as far as I was concerned. Xseed, who have already ported the game to PC as well, are also going to be bringing the title to PlayStation 4 in both digital and physical forms, of which I fully intend to buy the latter when pre-orders are finally available. Now this is a remaster, so from a technical standpoint, controls will be optimised for the PlayStation 4 as you would expect. There will be dual audio with both English and Japanese voices, which is surprising considering Xseed didn't do this with the likes of Cold Steel, and the graphics are going to be polished up to high def along with running at a silky smooth 60 frames per second. Moving on to the game itself, it actually begins in a different way from many other Ys games as well, as Adol isn't confining shipfarers to Davy Jones's locker. Instead, he appears in a town called Kasnan, and it seems he's lost his memories, but if I had to hazard a guess, I'd say he's been on the Jack Daniels a bit too much. Eventually, he's met by a man named Duren who joins him to exterminate some monsters in the nearby mines, which brings out Adol's latent sword skills despite having no memories. Eventually, he's found by the Roman general Griselda after a few more exploits, who you might know from another Ys title, and she enlists them to map out the Great Forest of Celceta, and thus the journey begins. Now for me, this is a very interesting game because it's actually one of the first chronologically in the series, coming after Ys 1 and 2. That means there's no Dogi here, as his first adventure with Adol is from Ofen-Felgana onwards. And considering that Ys Origin was my first Ys game, Celceta may have some references to that game as I play through, and if you know me, I'm a sucker for callbacks to other titles. It's a game that's been on my waiting list for a very long time now, but simply got buried beneath a miasma of other titles that I felt that I just had to play then and there. With this title coming out early next year, I feel this is the perfect time to give the game a go. Oh, and the music sounds awesome. So here we are guys, the shareholder meeting, the initial reason why I wanted to make this video in the first place. It happened on the 18th, yesterday, and in UK time I was actually asleep at this point. And put it this way guys, you know, I'm not a morning person. I never have been and I never will be. I've always been awful at getting up in the mornings, but the stuff that I was seeing on my Twitter feed that morning just blew me away, okay? It absolutely blew me away, the stuff I was seeing. So let's have a look at the announcements that Falcom made in this meeting and why it is so exciting going into 2020. No holds barred from Falcom, the first thing that is announced is the new Gaiden game that we know they have been working on quite extensively this year, and it appears we finally have a name for said title. It's called Eiyu Densetsu Hajimari no Kiseki. Now I'm taking a guess here on the English name, but I'm thinking it's something along the line of Trails of the Beginning or Trails from Origin. This is the game that is ultimately going to be tying up all loose ends from Sen no Kiseki 4 and potentially could pave the way for the new arc. As for the game itself, it appears to be taking on a unique approach. In this game there will be 3 protagonists and you'll see the story from each of their perspectives. This multifaceted approach will follow the hero, the liberator, and the hermit, whose destinies are intertwined due to their actions around the continent of Zemuria. On top of this, the game will feature over 50 characters, both old and new, as the player navigates through the stories of each route. For me, this sounds absolutely awesome, as it appears that the game will be digging into the backgrounds of each of these protagonists in so-called episode scenarios. And ultimately, it's capitalizing on what makes the series great, giving a lot more depth as we make our way to the next arc. The routes themselves will indeed be intertwined and happening simultaneously, so the player can see each situation from one of 3 different views. On top of this, the synopsis of the game starts with a very simple line: "This is the end as well as the beginning." And Falcom have stated that this title is ultimately going to lead the game to its inevitable conclusion, something that we touched on my previous Falcom news video. It makes sense that we're finally delving into the narrative that will finally conclude the entire series, and though that is a bit daunting to think about, I think this is the right way to do it. From what I've seen so far of this game, I'd like to think it'll have elements of previous titles such as Trails in the Sky III while keeping a grounding in the style of recent Cold Steel games, but needless to say, I'm very excited to see where Falcom takes us on this new narrative. It's due for summer 2020, so we won't have to wait long for a Japanese release. And there we go, guys. The announcement was made for the new game in 2020. That was pretty much the biggest announcement. That was the end of the shareholder meeting. We went to Q&As after that. And, you know, guys, that's it. That's it. The shareholder meeting is done. Big news. Can't wait to get going. So, for now, guys, I'll see you later. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Just kidding. No, just kidding, guys. There was one more big announcement, which arguably was actually more exciting than the new game. And that announcement related to Kai versions of both Zero no Kiseki and Ao no Kiseki. That's right, we're finally getting them on a modern console. Of course, Cold Steel 1 and 2 received Kai versions last year, which saw a revamp of the technical aspects as you would expect from any modern port. These included features of the PC versions such as support for 4K res, 60 FPS, optimized controls and better sound quality. Well, turns out that Ao and Zero have finally got the same treatment, in addition to having full voice acting, and are scheduled for a spring 2020 release. That's right, another one. Coinciding with this, the Kiseki portal was updated with sections on both Ao and Zero and a snazzy new 3D map of Western Zemuria to boot. It's quite a sight to behold, I must say. Now obviously, these games are releasing in Japan as remasters. This is not a localization. However, put it this way, it's much more viable to localize a PlayStation 4 title than it is a Vita title, and I'll leave it at that. Regardless, I intend to buy these games anyway. I don't care if they're in Japanese, I just want them, and from the reactions I was seeing, I think many more fans are biting at the ankle too. And we're not done yet. There are 2 more things that I want to mention from the shareholder meeting. First of all, Falcom will normally release one big title per year, in full, normally mid to late September. Currently, we have a release for spring, a release for summer, but so far no release for fall. Maybe Falcom have decided to change up their schedule this year, but this is something to contemplate. Secondly, Falcom are working on their own game engine. The likes of Cold Steel use Sony's Pyre engine, but recognising a potential need for better graphics as mentioned in the Q&A section, Kondo stated that they are working on their own proprietary engine, though it is very much in its infancy at present, so the fruits of this project won't be seen for a while. Quite simply though, 2020 is a big year for Trails and Falcom alike. We've got ports galore, a new game, and a myriad of speculation. This year marks my first full year as a Trails and Falcom fan, and it's been a blast. I fully expect the next year to be just as good, if not better. And that is it, guys. You know, an early Christmas present. I wish you all a Merry Christmas. I wish you all a Happy New Year as well. And I also want to say a big thank you to everyone who has supported me this past 6 months or so, you know, making these YouTube videos, having people come in and watch them and really get something out of them, enjoy them. That's the biggest part for me, and I'm really glad that people like these videos. I'm really glad that people want to see more, and I really hope as well that the future content I bring out in 2020 will be up to your standard as well. So one more time, guys, Merry Christmas, have a Happy New Year, and remember, this is the end, but also the beginning.